Hi. So I guess that I would think would strongly agree with Idiche would probably be Brent Staples, who was the author of Just Walk On By. Staples would argue that single stories are dangerous because they really dictate someone's life. Sorry. And what I mean by this is that single stories can really push a narrative or belief that on somebody or a group of people. And it could really just strip their humanity away and who they really are because the single story overlooks everything else about them. And one of Staples' experiences that support this is when he was a graduate student in Chicago. He would have insomnia and he would go on walks late at night to clear his head, right? So one night he would be out walking on an empty street. He just happened to be walking behind a white woman who's by herself, and when she saw like Staples was walking behind her and kind of following her in a way, she would run away in a panic just because he was black. And his experience shows how a single story really just stripped his entire identity away and made him look like a threat in the eyes of that white woman, and that made her think that he was a dangerous person just because he was black. And so moving on to question number 2, as an Asian American myself, many outsiders might think I'm a straight A student and that I want to study to become a doctor or engineer or a lawyer. But the single story of how Asian students are smart and that they are going to have high wage jobs such as doctors really overlooks what's going on in the background, which is really the parents, because Asian parents really stress the fact about how they want their kids to have straight A's, no B's, nothing under an A, and they want their kids to have high income, stable jobs once they're out of college, right? But I myself do care about my grades and I do have straight A's, but I just hate the idea of like working under somebody else and having a wage job. I would much rather work for a lot less money doing what I'm doing and rather just build that up to eventually become a high wage job or a high source of income rather than immediately going out looking for a job with a high income and working under somebody else. This single story just really overlooks how Asian students are locked into that pathway of become a doctor, engineer, or lawyer, right? And so moving on to the last question, one way we can combat these single stories is to we have to refuse to believe the first thing that we hear or a common narrative or belief that is pushed upon a group of people. And this is also what Adisha calls a balance of stories. An example of this is when Adichie talks about her one of her publishers who are in Nigeria that publishes affordable books locally there. And so a messenger from an outside country came came to Nigeria and actually read one of Adichie's novels that was published by that publisher, and she actually liked it, but she didn't really like the ending. So when Adichie came to Nigeria, she came up to her and gave her suggestions about how to write a sequel and how she didn't like the ending. And this really just shows how if you give a space for Nigerians to really tell stories and write about their literature, it opens up different perspectives from outsiders and it really breaks stereotype of how Nigerians don't read literature or write literature. It opens up the minds of everybody else and shows a different perspective of Nigerians. And yeah, thank you for watching my video.